2025 is going to be all about agentic AI.
I have the really unpopular view that humans are going to become increasingly more unnecessary.
Within 2 years, the jobs for 200 people have become redundant. How does that transition become? It can't be like a one-off.
Like imagine if some company like Anthropic or OpenAI came up with an AI tomorrow. Like the amount of chaos that creates on planet Earth, it would be staggering.
It's not like tomorrow there's going to be agentic AI and suddenly, boom, there's no jobs anymore.
Human beings bring something unique to the table, right? We're not just data processors. An AI will never have the drive to build a big business. It's a calculator at the end of the day.
Where do you see some of the limitations?
The number one thing that pops into my head is
Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the AIM Media House podcast Simulated Reality. Today we have with us Jesse Anglen. He is from Rapid Innovation. He is the founder and CEO there. Jesse, how are you doing today?
I am doing phenomenally today. I think it's been productive at least.
Fantastic. Election day in the US. Are you following it closely?
I mean, I follow it as closely as I have to go and vote, but other than that, you know what? It's nice to have other things in life that you care about. Like,
artificial intelligence.
Yeah, dude, I live a pretty good life, and so I don't have to get super caught up in all the political stuff, which is nice. My job is pretty apolitical in the sense that it doesn't matter which side of the fence you are on. There's lots of entrepreneurs that are doing lots of cool things all over the place, and so for the most part, I kind of stay out of politics. But I do follow it. I mean, I've got Twitter open on another tab, and I am watching to see all the drama unfold and everything else.
I think it's funny how this 2025 is going to be all about agentic AI. Last 1 or 2 years were about Gen AI. Before that, it was about data engineering. Before that, it was ML ops. I think we are going to, every year I can host the same podcast with the same set of leaders and I'll have more topics and more perspectives. Walk us through your journey. What is it that, made you want to talk about agentic AI? What have you been doing some cool stuff around it? How has the different advancements in Gen AI kind of taken you to this journey, etc.?
Background on me is I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I started working with startups who wanted to use cool technology to build things a long time ago, like 15 years ago. And back then, like the technological, like the advancements in technology were not nearly as cool as they are today. And then blockchain came around, and that was super fascinating because that was a new technology. I drank the Kool-Aid like 100%. I had, it was bad. Like I completely dove into the blockchain world head first. And actually even started Rapid Innovation in a lot of ways, thinking that I'm going to just absolutely fundamentally change the way that the world works by helping entrepreneurs build blockchain applications. That was 5 years ago now. And about 3 years ago, I started playing around with AI. And as generative AI became better and better, I actually started seeing how you could build basic agents or agentic systems with generative AI. It was a little bit clunky. We tried even 2 years ago we started working on some agentic systems that, I mean, they worked and they were really cool. But for me, like Gen AI has always been like a stepping stone towards the really, really cool things that you can do with agentic systems. I have no idea. Like at some point, we're going to get like really, really powerful reasoning machines that can almost like really mimic human intelligence, human decision making. I think at that point, agentic AI is going to blow up. You can see some of it now, and it's, in my mind, it's one of the most practical applications of technology for business that exists today, beyond like emailing people, right? Like it's more efficient to email someone than drive to their office or whatever. Like, like there's obvious advancements in technology, but agentic systems are like wildly practical. And what's interesting is when I talk to people, most people have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like they just don't. They think of generative AI as something that writes poems or helps rewrite emails or whatever people are using it for. And in my mind, like there are just amazingly powerful things that you can do with generative AI systems that actually all work together, reason together, accomplish tasks together. And I find it super fascinating.
Agentic AI, one of the things here that you mentioned is that there's a lot of business applications. Personally, I believe that agentic AI will go beyond business. I don't think it will be only large enterprises where this will be implemented. So here's my thing, right? I want to draw a distinction, and with your expertise, I will be able to do it even better. Try and define what is agentic AI, right? Like say when I ask my Alexa to put on the light, right, is another task which it is doing it by itself. Or if I ask my chat GPT to write or refine my email, that's another task that it is doing to. At what threshold or what kind of level does this tasks or series of tasks become complicated enough that it can be called agentic AI? And what does that threshold be defined by?
I think that you could define like an architecture to be agentic when it has multiple specialized agents working together to accomplish a common goal. I believe that that is where, now whether or not that's 2 agents that are working together to accomplish a common goal or 30 agents that are working together to accomplish a common goal, I don't know. And how complex it has to be, I don't know. But like the first project that came into my mind when you said that is we have an in-house project that we built for writing blogs. And you can kind of take that all the way from generative AI, meaning you can hop into ChatGPT and you can say, write me a blog about X, and ChatGPT will spit you out a blog, right? It's not going to be a very good blog. It's like the content's going to suck. It's going to sound very AI written. It's not going to be SEO optimized. It might not be tailor fit to your business or your audience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you can take an agentic system and do the same thing and accomplish something incredibly different. And so, for instance, like a lot of the content that we create that's written content is actually created by an agentic system with 38 different AI agents that all fulfill different roles way beyond content writing. Because if you think about this, if I said, hey man, I need you to go write me a blog article about agentic AI. You're not going to sit down, open up a Google Doc and start writing. Like that would be stupid. No one does that. You're going to, number one, you're going to create a project brief and understand like, what's the purpose of this content? Who's my audience? Who am I reaching? Then you're going to think about the search engine optimization. How am I going to make this content applicable? Then you're going to go and do a bunch of research as to different companies that are really playing around with agentic AI. You're going to compile that research and you're going to create a piece of content, right? So you can fulfill all of those different roles as an intelligence in like one-shot prompting style, right? Where you first sit down, think about the audience, then next you move on to the next task, so forth, so on. But if you had a team of people and there was 5 of you or 10 of you or 12 of you, how would you divide that work up? And then who would you put in charge of that work? And ultimately, when we think about agentic systems that we build, that's how we think about those tasks. And so on this blog writing agentic system, when a human being interacts with it and says, I need you to write me a blog article about agentic AI, and I want it targeted in healthcare. Mm-hmm. The very first thing that will happen is an agent will spin up that's actually just a manager. It's not going to do any writing. It's not going to do anything. It's going to go through and it's going to create the job descriptions for all the people that it needs. It needs an agent that can do research, that has access to the internet. It needs agents that can copyright. It needs agents that can look at SEO optimization. It needs agents that are just critics that can read it and provide feedback. And it needs the ability to create those agents, and it needs the ability to fire those agents if they're not doing a good job. And then each of those agents need the ability to communicate with each other. And so a true agentic system, in my mind, at least when I'm looking at this system running, right? If I go give it a task, it hires a bunch of other agents. Those agents start communicating with each other. They'll actually lay out tasks. They'll tell each other what they're going to go do. One of them is going to go start, hop on Google, start researching. It's going to bring topics back. It's going to give it to the manager. The manager is going to pick from the best of those topics and say, okay, this, and this makes sense. It's going to create a brief. That brief is going to go to a copywriter agent. The copywriter agent is going to then take and write a first draft of the copy. He's going to give it back to the review agent who's going to review it, as well as to the SEO agent. The feedback from the two of them are going to get combined, given back to the copywriting agent. The copywriting agent's going to go through, recreate the copy, submit it for approval, and then that approval is going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. It'll go get posted on the blog. It'll go to the, the system that actually goes and works with WordPress, posts it, sends an email to whatever the human counterpart was that requested it, and then you've got a new blog posted. And so in my mind, that's an agentic system, right? It's a workforce of AI intelligences that all have specific jobs that are working together to meet a common goal.
Until now, however, a lot of these systems that were there were probably created with the mind of reducing the effort needed for human, but at the same time, human agency was considered equally important, right? When it comes to agentic AI, do you envision a future where technology is again mainly doing that, or do you believe that the agency from humans will be taken away? Like, how do you kind of see that balance over a period of time?
I have the really unpopular view that humans are going to become increasingly more unnecessary. And this is mostly just because of a couple of things, right? If you go back 3 years inside my company, I used to have over 300 people that were working for me. We started building agentic systems internally to make our processes more efficient. Let's pretend that, let's just pick an arbitrary amount of work that we could get done 3 years ago with 370 people. And let's say it was 10 units of work is what we could get done. On today's date, I have 100 people that work for me. So that I've gotten rid of 270 people. And I'm able to get done 14 units of work. And that is simply because I have created a bunch of agentic systems that are doing a lot of work that people that used to work for me used to do. Those people are no longer necessary. Like, to me, the writing's on the wall. Now, the people I've kept are the people who really understand how to interact with these agentic systems, and generally it's problem solving skills, because AI is still pretty stupid. So problem solving skills, organizational skills, architecting skills, creativity skills, like those kinds of things are where I still need humans. But in the actual doing of the work, and strategy would be another one, because AI sucks at strategy. In the actual doing of the work, though, I don't need a bunch of people to do that work for me anymore. The AI does it. And as AI gets smarter and smarter, better at strategizing, better at creativity, better at problem solving, better at reasoning, I think you're going to find that you need less and less human involvement. And so I am personally of the unpopular opinion that human agency is going to become less and less relevant as we move forward. Now, is that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? I don't know exactly, but I'm seeing it happening.
My main problem is, are we ready for this conversation? Is, today is election day, and, we're talking about gun rights, abortion rights, and, some of these rights which are more concerning to the people, especially from the US context when it comes to especially conversations around AI. How will Republicans or Democrats will be divided over a period of time, or what will be the left or right? And at the same time, what does this mean for us, right, over a period of time? Like, what does this mean for enterprises? What does this mean for humans? What does this mean while we are within the transition? Like, let's say you 3 years back you said you had 300, now you have 100 employees. Within 2 years you have, you have the jobs for 200 people have become redundant. How does that transition become? It can't be like a one off. Like, it needs to be like a this thing. So what is your opinion on all of this?
Like, imagine if some company like Anthropic or OpenAI came up with an AI tomorrow that could just replace human workers altogether. Like, the amount of chaos that creates on planet Earth would be staggering. It couldn't happen. If it did happen, it would throw the entire planet into a kind of chaos that we haven't seen probably since the Dark Ages. I mean, it would be horrible. And so I think that like any technology that has the potential for a massive amount of disruption, it can only move as fast as the people who are adopting it will let it move, right? Like,
Mm.
for instance, I get to have conversations with large enterprises where agentic systems could replace very large workforces. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and a system that we could build in maybe 3 months would replace 10,000 employees.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it
Yeah, I think one of the
because,
things.
because at the end of the day, it harms them, right? It harms their reputation. It's just harmful.
Yeah, I think especially in terms of opportunities for agentic AI, the conversations are not as black and white as any other topic, right? So, for instance, let me give you an example. When I was having a topic of conversation with a vegan, right, and they were like, we should all move to plant-based diet, and we shouldn't have animal produce. I was like, but are you saying that that should happen in one day? Like, are you saying that even if you want to transition, okay, I agree that probably red meat consumption is bad for greenhouse gases. Are you saying that it should happen in one day? Can you imagine the number of livelihoods it will disrupt if you kill the
Oh,
meat
yeah.
in one day? You have to transition out of it, even if you are. And I'm not taking sides on whether you should be vegan or not. I have grown up eating meat, but I also believe that there is a case when you probably should move more towards plant-based diet. But it's not either or, right? It's same way with AI. It's not like tomorrow there's going to be agentic AI and it's suddenly boom, there's no jobs anymore, everybody's this thing.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be terrible. I mean, if you look at the impact that the Industrial Revolution had on the world, and the
yeah,
jobs that were lost and the poverty that was created from that, especially on the East Coast, and in the farming communities and things along areas like that, in manufacturing. I mean, it was devastating, and that took years, 15 years for the Industrial Revolution to really come into full swing. The technology existed to accomplish everything that they accomplished in those 15 years on day one. It just took
yeah,
them 15 years to implement it. And the truth is, if they had been able to implement it on day one, it would have been devastating. And so I do think it's going to roll out slowly. It's going to have to roll out slowly. I don't think there's a way for it not to. And there's something else too that I think is important. Human beings bring something unique to the table, right? We're not just data processors, right? If you look at an LLM, they're able to mimic some human emotion. They're able to mimic or solve problems. And let's say that they get way better. Let's say they become significantly more intelligent than the most intelligent human beings that have ever existed, and we create a super intelligence. And let's say that they can reason better than most humans can, and let's say that they can mimic creativity and emotion and all the other things that we think of right now as human. The truth is that they can't be human. They just can't. Like, an AI will never have the drive to build a big business because it's inside them to be successful. They're never going to want to create a piece of art that changes the world, or or create a system that changes an industry. They're going to be following directions. They're going to be order taking machines, right? That it's a calculator at the end of the day. Maybe a really, really complex smart calculator that can do a lot of things. But in my opinion, that needs to be driven by some form of humanity. And what I've noticed inside my company, as someone who really has probably done more than most in implementing agentic systems and AI into like the day-to-day operations of a company, is that, number one, if today I could flip a switch and get rid of every single person that worked for me and just have computers do everything, I wouldn't. Me personally, I wouldn't, because this morning I had an awesome conversation where I laughed and we made jokes with each other and we talked about the different clients that we're working with, and like we had a good time. I can't do that with an AI. Like, there is no such thing as that human interaction. It actually makes me more creative, inspires me to go solve more problems, encourages me to do the things that I want to do. And I want to surround myself with people who understand that is what they bring to the table as a human being, not necessarily the amount of work they get done. Because this is the fundamental shift that I think needs to happen brain-wise for people. Right now, human beings tend to value others or value themselves based on the amount of work you can get done. Go back 5 years, and I had a guy that worked for me, and he was amazing at writing procedures manuals. Like he could sit down in a day and do something that'd take me a week, because he just loved to write procedures manuals. And to me, he was very valuable as an employee because he was really good at writing procedures manuals. The truth is, though, is that was what he had learned to do that made him that everyone focused on as his let's say KPI for success. Right now you can go on ChatGPT. There's platforms that exist where you can create process manuals. Like that's easy to do, right? I mean, it now costs nothing and takes 2 minutes instead of a whole day. But the thing that made him valuable wasn't his ability to write process manuals. And this is where I needed to start thinking about the difference in how people actually work. It was his ability to look at an entire process and understand how all the parts and pieces work together. He was an architect. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what he was really good at, was he was an architect. And so if I give him the ability to work with an AI as an architect, all of a sudden he's able to 50x his productivity because he's relying on his humanity and the thing he's good at. And he has outsourced the doing. And I believe that that's what the transition will actually look like. Human beings outsource the doing, but they're going to maintain the humanity part of what is happening, right? The thing that makes us human, that the reason we're not still in the Stone Age, that we've innovated beyond that we're not still in the Industrial Age, that we've innovated beyond that life is better today than it ever has been. I mean, the world will just become a better place because we won't have to do everything anymore. The robots will do it. We'll just think.
I think this is a very interesting conversation, but while at the same time, I would also like to, since you're working closely with so many clients, bring us back to a little more of what will agentic AI look like in another 2-3 months in 2025, right? Like, so what are some of the cool use cases that you're looking? Whether it will replace jobs, and whether it will completely revolutionize how human societies exist or not, is a very fun conversation to have. But I want to kind of go to more immediate opportunities that we are seeing. What are some of the cool applications, immediate cost cuttings, immediate revenue streams? What are some of these things that you're seeing from a very opportunity perspective?
Yeah, I'll let me rattle off the first like 3 that popped into my head when you said that. So worked with a guy in the Midwest who had a manufacturing plant, and he had already like automated his entire manufacturing plant. It was all robots doing the assembly, cutting, building, shipping. But his sales floor was very human heavy. He had about 400 people working on the sales floor they would read emails, and they would input that into the automated floor, robotic system that was actually doing the work. And so we built an agentic system that could basically take in all the emails and all the phone calls, understand what the client wanted, with the list of everything that the automated floor was able to do, and then speak directly with or interface directly with the automated production floor. And basically he went from having 300 people on his sales floor to having 2 people on his sales floor that just watched the agentic system. And it took one guy 3 weeks to build that for him. I mean, the cost saving, like practically speaking, it was probably one of the best cost savings I have ever seen across any of my clients, because he went to having, he had a 400-person company, and then a month later he had a 5-person company, and less mistakes were made. The customers were happier because they got exactly what they needed instantly instead of having to wait for a human. And so that was an agentic system that went through and basically acted like all of those people, read the emails, did all the stuff that it was supposed to do. So that's the first one that popped into my head. I'll actually launch it here probably in the next week, but I've got an agentic system that replaces our entire discovery system. So like, let's say you had an idea for an application you wanted to build. The standard process would be you'd call a development company, you'd explain your idea to them. They would then ask you a bunch of questions. You would answer those questions. They would take those answers, architect a solution, figure out how long it was going to take to build it, and then give you a timeline and a price to build the thing that you wanted to build. That current process right now takes, to estimate a project, takes anywhere between a week to 4 weeks, let's say, depending on how complex the process is. We're going to launch an agentic system next week that basically you hop on the website or you call, you have that conversation with an AI. The AI asks all the questions, it puts everything together, and then the agentic system goes in, figures out how long it's going to take to build, what the best tech stack is, figures out what questions to ask you, runs through that entire process that usually would take 5-6 people, 2-3 weeks to do. And it'll get it all done in 2 days. Kind of a silly one that's been fun is like our YouTube channel is completely an agentic system. And so like there's an avatar of me that goes on and hosts a YouTube video. There's agents that research topics that would be interesting to our clients, puts together scripts. It goes and feeds all of that stuff to like a PlayHT or 11 Labs cloned voice of mine that then creates the, me talking and having a conversation. And then that gets fed into another agentic system that edits a video, grabs all the B-roll, puts it all together, and posts it to YouTube. And so like content creation and how do you get that stuff out to your clients? Like that's another agentic system that has been really interesting. I had another client that was really interesting where they wanted to, there's this idea of solopreneurship, right? Where you have a single person in charge of a company and they become the bottleneck to their company because all of the value of the company is wrapped up into however many hours they can stay awake and be productive. Think of someone who's like a business coach. But there's a lot of different examples of people who are doing that kind of a job. And he built a system where you take their entire body of work that they've ever produced. You feed that into a vector database, and then you give access to that via a RAG system. You give access to all of that data to an LLM, and then you create a personality for it through a bunch of like interesting prompt engineering and some clever architecting, and you create basically a synthetic clone of that person that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's like, how do we get that information out to everybody? And so those are agentic systems, right? That basically will replace you and give value to people based on whatever special knowledge that you have.
One of the consistent themes around all of these is that while the human agency in terms of repetitive tasks is reduced, the context specific understanding context behind each one is something that probably continuously is relevant and will remain relevant. My final question to you is with regards to some of the challenges, right? When we are trying to scale this technology beyond a point, where do you see some of the limitations, like human context or characteristics that humans are able to bring? So what are some of the things that you see as challenges in terms of scaling agentic AI going forward?
The number one thing that pops into my head is the human machine interface problem. Like currently speaking, no one likes to talk to machines. There's a few people like me who will wake up in the morning and have a conversation with ChatGPT, but for the most part, most people aren't interested in that. If they want to get something done, they want to talk to a person. Yeah. And so like there's a technological barrier to entry there that's going to have to get passed to where human beings are as comfortable talking to a machine as they are talking to a person. And the technology itself is a limitation there. We just haven't gotten there yet. So that'd be number one. Number two is, although like AI is crazy smart, right? Like it knows more than anybody, but it can't figure out how many R's are in the word strawberry. Like it's also like dumber than the dumbest person that like my little tiny children who can barely talk can count the R's in strawberry. And so there's a certain level of like we have to move beyond the prediction. Like, how do I predict the next token in a sequence and actually have the ability to reason? And you're seeing some of that with like OpenAI's, their newest reasoning models that are fasting. Other people are doing research in those areas. But even then, if you look at how those machines reason, they are so much more inefficient than a human being. Like, if I asked you to count the R's in the word strawberry, you'd be like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 3. Like it'd be almost instantaneous. You might even be able to tell me instantaneously. Whereas it's going to take 15 seconds to figure out a very, very simple reasoning problem. And so that is a massive limitation because right now human beings are the best reasoning machines on planet Earth. And as far as I can tell, like AI can't touch that. And reason is something that we use regularly. I mean, it's what makes people valuable, generally speaking. And so that's a huge limitation. The other one is just going to be like the amount of power needed to go to the next level. Like we're going to have a hardware problem, like a physical, like some, I was reading an article the other day. It says we might run out of sand uh, because we need sand to make silicon, and we need silicon in order to create like bigger and better, smarter models. And like there was a prediction that said that that like sand is becoming a scarce resource and will become like much more scarce as we move into the future, because of all of the silicon that people are trying to make to keep up with the blockchain space and all the GPUs to keep up with the AI space. Is going to be way more demand than we've ever had before. And so I think just the hardware itself, like how do we build hardware that is efficient enough and good enough to use? Like in my mind, if you can solve those three problems, which we're smart that way, then we're going to see just crazy growth in the AI space.
One final question to you. This year is agentic AI, or probably 2025 is more agentic AI. What will be 2026?
I would say it's going to be reasoning AI.
Okay.
Yeah, I think AI reasoning is going to be the buzzword of 2026, if I had to guess.
It'll be fun to revisit and
yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for machines that can reason. It's a little scary, maybe, some of this stuff, but I'm excited for machines that can reason. I see the writings on the wall, man, and you start looking at some of these, like reading some of the papers that are coming out where people are just thinking about how to make these machines reason like a human. There was a time in the future where we may not be the dominant race on planet Earth. We may have literally just created the dominant race on planet Earth. And so it'll be fascinating to see that happen.
I'm excited for the future. Thank you so much, Jesse, for making the time. I will let you go back to switching on the TV and finding out who the next president of the US is. Talk very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation.